My name is Rosalind, aka Roz Pichardo, and this is my story. I grew up in a one-parent household with my mom. At 6 years old, my stepfather, Andre, came into our lives and took care of 4 children that wasn't his own. Later on in life, my stepdad had 3 other children, and we had a pretty busy, crazy childhood. We didn't live in a very good neighborhood. However, we kind of made with what we had. What I remember the most was living in my grandmother's house, and a 2-story, 3-bedroom house with 23 people living in this house. And it was like a big playground for us kids, with all of the cousins. And at 16 years old in 1994, I was in a relationship which became very abusive very quickly. I ended the relationship after he beat me up and just wasn't getting better after his trauma. And I needed to move on, and I did. And when I did, it became the hardest decision I made in my life because I was afraid of him. And he did beat me and threw me over a bridge and shot at me, and I lived. But later on that night, my boyfriend at the time was not so lucky. He was murdered in front of my mom's house. And I struggled and I faced my fears when he was caught, and I lived the trauma of being thrown over the bridge and being beat, but I couldn't deal with the pain of losing Talbert. That was the hardest thing, to see someone lose their life. I faced him through the trial and even through the intimidation of his family, and I wouldn't give up. And years later, more trauma entered my life, and I was 22 when my identical twin sister, Kathleen Pichardo, committed suicide. Having to deal with her suicide was probably the hardest thing because we did everything together. We had our children together, like everything was just one with us. And it wasn't one anymore when she was gone. So a year after that, in 2002, the pain was just too great for me, and I unfortunately attempted to take my life and ended up at the Temple ICU for 11 days and survived the next trauma of my life that I didn't think that I was going to overcome. But because I'm in Christ, I believe that He yet again saved me from myself. And then tragedy strikes us again in 2012 with the murder of my brother. He was protecting my nephew. During a robbery, they took his stuff and took his life. And ever since, I just can't see me doing the things that I used to do. Now I see myself as a crime services during the day, activist, and crisis responder by night. It's not something that I chose to do. It's something that was given to me. I think it's my purpose now. I think the murder of my brother has lit a fire in my life, not only for me, but for families of homicide victims. And then, tragedy strikes us again in 2013, 1 year after the murder of my brother. My dad, the only dad that I ever knew that took care of us, that took us in as his own, willed himself to his own death. When he would say over and over, I just want to go to sleep and not wake up, because of the pain of losing my brother to murder and not finding the person who did it. And to this day, the case is unsolved. And he will say daily when he wake up, daily when he goes to bed, I want to go to bed and not wake up. And that is what ultimately happened. he went to sleep and never woke up. But with God's grace, and he has given me the strength to just help and to serve.